Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour. Israel says Iran violating ceasefire, orders strikes on Tehran after both countries agree for truce. As part of Operation Sindhu, 594 Indians returned so far from Israel. 268 Indian nationals returned in third flight received by MOS Dr. L. Murugan. Heat waves and wildfires grip multiple regions worldwide. Health warnings issued in US as East Coast grapples with searing heat. Greece and Russia battle wildfires. Multiple rain alert in different parts of India. Thrilling encounter expected on fifth and final day of Leeds Test between India and England. All eyes on Indian bowlers as they seek to limit England within the target of 350 runs. The latest update in the Israel-Iran conflict. Israel has said that Iran has violated the ceasefire and had ordered the military to strike Tehran. The Israeli military is also working to shoot down Iranian missiles after detecting a launch. Israeli Prime Minister earlier in a statement had agreed to US President Donald Trump's proposal for bilateral ceasefire with Iran. Earlier on Tuesday, US President Donald Trump announced that a ceasefire between Israel and Iran was in effect, urging both sides not to violate the agreement. Israel also agreed to Trump's ceasefire proposal with Iran, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office stating that the deal came after Israel achieved its goal of removing Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missile threat. More in this report.
US President Donald Trump has said in a social media post that the ceasefire between Israel and Iran is now in effect. He also urged both the countries not to violate it. A senior White House official said Trump had brokered a ceasefire deal in a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Israel had agreed so long as Iran did not launch further attacks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a statement posted by his office on Tuesday, said that Israel has agreed to Trump's proposal for a ceasefire with Iran after it achieved its goal of removing Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missile threat. However, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that there is no agreement on a ceasefire with Israel, but that Tehran will halt attacks if Israel stops its illegal aggression. The ceasefire came into effect at 400 GMT. Before the deadlines, the missile and strikes exchange continued. The Israeli military said that 2 volleys of missiles were launched from Iran towards Israel in the early hours of Tuesday. Witnesses later heard explosions near Tel Aviv and Beersheba in central Israel. According to Israeli media, a building was struck, and Israel's National Ambulance Service has confirmed 3 people were killed in the missile strike on Beersheba. Iran launched missiles at Al Udeid US Air Base on Monday evening. Both Qatari and US officials said nearly all were intercepted and there were no casualties or injuries. Qatar has reopened its airspace after closing it earlier on Monday in anticipation of retaliatory attacks by Iran on a US air base near Doha. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's Operation Sindhu continues in full swing. The third flight from Sharm el-Sheikh landed on Tuesday, carrying 268 Indians from Israel. The C-17 Globemaster of the Indian Air Force landed at Air Force Station Palam in Delhi at 11:40 IST. The flight was received by Union Minister L. Murugan. DD India correspondent Vishal Baristo spoke to some of the passengers who have been evacuated from Egypt under Operation Sindhu.
As you can see, C-17 has just landed from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and I have with me some of the evacuees. There are 268 in number. Let's talk to them. How has been your experience, and what do you have to say about the government, about the Indian Air Force, about the embassy?
I am overwhelmed, honestly speaking, because when we left Israel from our institute, which is also hit by one of the missiles of Iran, I am from Weizmann Institute in Israel, we were told that we'll be traveling in a chartered airplane from Egypt. So the journey from Israel to Egypt was close to 10 to 12 hours on bus, and after that we reached Egypt. We were greeted with the Indian embassy people from Cairo. They were there with us. We were given dinner and we were asked like if we need rooms to share. We all thought that we are going to stay overnight in Egypt, but suddenly one of the officers from Air Force came and he stood on a podium and said, Bharat jaane ke liye ready hai? And they said that we are preparing the aircraft and we all will take you to India. And we were like, okay, we really want to go back.
Fantastic feeling.
And what do you have to say about the arrangements?
So good, so good. I feel I am in India.
With cameraman Uttam in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
Earlier, an Indian Air Force C-17 flight evacuated 165 Indian nationals from Israel. They were received by MOS Dr. L. Murugan upon arrival in Delhi on Tuesday morning. The aircraft landed at 8:45 hours from Amman, Jordan. And the first batch of 161 Indian nationals evacuated from Israel arrived New Delhi this morning. They safely arrived on Tuesday at 8:20 hours IST from Amman, Jordan. Minister of State Pabitra Margarita said that the safety and security of Indian nationals abroad remains the highest priority for the government. All right, and Dinkar Prakash Srivastav, former Indian ambassador to Iran and distinguished fellow VIF, joins us on the broadcast. Ambassador, a very warm welcome to the broadcast. First of all, the tensions in West Asia seems to be increasing again, seems to be rising again. Now, Israel is alleging that Iran has violated the ceasefire, and this after both nations agreed for truce. How do you see this?
You know, in these kind of wars situations, ceasefires take some time to go into effect because both sides try to grab last minute advantage, trying to push the boundary. Now, in this case, that is not going to happen. These are two countries, fortunately, 1,000 kilometers apart. But there's still this issue that,
But Ambassador,
one side might feel that the other side has had an advantage, and this is the last chance to, shall I say, even the scores. So it will take some time, but let's hope that the ceasefire holds. And incidentally, the Iranian side has denied the Israeli claim that there was a strike again after the ceasefire went into effect.
But Ambassador, there was a ray of hope, a sigh of relief, and everyone was just happy around the world because it has a wider implications as well. The tensions in West Asia, everyone was happy after listening to the fact that both Iran and Israel agreed to ceasefire. But what just happened? How do you analyze the entire scenario? You just said that it takes some time for both the nations in these kind of situations to actually sink in when it comes to ceasefire. But what is this actually, what the situation says as of now?
As I mentioned, the Iranian side says that there was no strike again after no recent strike, which is a tacit admission that there was a ceasefire which was holding. They have also said there is no agreement, but they would not attack as long as the Israeli side does not attack. And it's a very difficult situation, and please bear in mind the announcement by President Trump. There is this issue of trust deficit because US itself was a belligerent. So, you can't be a party to war and be a mediator at the same time. So this probably is the reason This background we have to keep in mind, but let's hope that the ceasefire which has been announced actually gets implemented by both sides.
Well, we can only hope for the same, but Ambassador, Iran had put condition earlier, like you've just also mentioned, that if Israel will not attack, we will not attack. That was a condition that Iran had put. But when it comes to Israel, Israel had agreed to ceasefire. Israel had agreed to the Trump's proposal of ceasefire. But now it seems like Iran has violated, and the conditions that they have put doesn't mean anything.
You know, agreement requires consent of both sides. So Israel agreeing to Trump's proposal does not necessarily mean that Iran has also agreed. And conversely, you can't accuse Iran of violating ceasefire simply because President Trump has announced a ceasefire and Israel says that it has agreed to it. As I said, it requires consent of both the parties.
Okay, so okay, Ambassador, is there something beyond what meets the eye?
I won't like to hazard a guess. As I said, I share your hope that the ceasefire holds, because this was an unnecessary war and it has already caused enough damage on both sides.
Indeed. But Ambassador, now looking at the present situation, how do you see Iran's nuclear program? Because they had said that we won't stop it.
You know, Iran's nuclear program, there is no reason to assume that they are violating it. There was an agreement called JCPOA under Obama administration in 2016. It was not Iran which walked out of the agreement, it was US which walked out of the agreement. Iran maintained its commitment even a year after US had formally withdrawn, and this is not simply, it's certainly not my interpretation, this is what IAEA as well as the E3, the three European members said. So now, just before this recent round of hostilities, there was some hope. There was direct bilateral, there were bilateral negotiations between US and Iran. And Iran was demanding that it be allowed to maintain enrichment level up to 3.67%, which is allowed under the NPT.
Correct.
And which was also allowed under the previous agreement. And apparently this was agreed by Mr. Witkoff, the US negotiator, but next day he had to go back on what he himself had announced. And he said it has to be Trump's deal, and Trump's deal is zero enrichment. So US had again moved the goalpost. So, you know, we cannot now blame only one side. And the side which is actually the victim of military strikes initiated by Israel.
Ambassador, now in the present situation, Israel has ordered strikes on Tehran. So do you think that we are going back to the previous situation?
I hope not. I hope not. You know, as I said that in these situations, skirmishes sometimes continue. It has happened in case of India-Pakistan wars. It has happened all over the world, Sinai and 67 war, 73 war in the Middle East. So let's just hope that these are episodes which will soon die out and ceasefire will actually take effect. But let me add something.
Please.
This will not be a agreed peace. This will be an uncomfortable peace because there is no agreement between the two sides. You know, US and Israel still maintain that it has to be zero enrichment, and Iran has not accepted that condition. On the other hand,
Ambassador, are you referring to the Libya model?
No. Let me complete. On the other hand, Iran feels that it has not received any relief. The sanctions remain. So it's going to be an uncomfortable situation. I won't call it Libya model because Libya model what is called Libya model was a result of regime change. Here, even if at different points this was
but Trump hinted at regime change, Ambassador. But
no, he not just hinted, he said it. And Israel was more vocal. But no regime change has taken place. So you can't say it's Libya model. And thank God it is not Libya model, because Libya model was, complete anarchy in a country. Incidentally, I also, apart from serving as ambassador in Iran, I also served as ambassador in Libya, and that was during Gaddafi's days. And I have no problems in categorically stating that this was a very prosperous country. People, by and large, despite whatever you see in the Western media, they were happy. Government, picked up the bill for everything from education to health, from birth, from cradle to grave. So what happened thereafter? That's a lesson. And the lesson is that a military outcome can be quickly decided, but it is not worth it in case it destabilizes the country, and that in turn leads to unintended consequences. Now, in case of Libya, what happened? There was large-scale migration to Europe, which has caused huge problems for Europeans, and that the reaction was a series of right-wing governments which have taken power, anti-immigration movement and so on. And Iraq is a even worse case, and it was not just the Iraqis suffered, the US suffered. This was, US eventually had to leave after spending, there are various figures, something like $2 trillion and taking huge casualties. And at the end of it, the Iraqi oil wells have now gone to the Chinese companies. So you don't want that kind of, unintended consequences which damage all sides concerned.
All right, Ambassador, very quickly, while tensions were escalating in West Asia, India made sure that safety and security of its citizens living outside remains paramount, and thus Operation Sindhu was launched to evacuate not just Indian citizens but also citizens from countries like Nepal and Sri Lanka. How do you see that as a whole?
This was an excellent operation, very well implemented, and it was a very nice gesture on India's part to extend this also to citizens of our neighboring countries, Nepal and Sri Lanka, who may not have had the wherewithal to bring their citizens back. And incidentally, I recall, since I have served in Libya, though this happened after I had left that country, there was evacuation there, from there, and at that time we had also allowed this facility to a lot of Bangladeshi citizens who were present in Libya. So India has provided humanitarian assistance, not only in this case, but in other cases. And I think this was a very, very nice gesture.
Indeed, the government of India makes sure that Indians who are living abroad, their safety and security is paramount. And as far as this conflict is concerned, Ambassador, only time will tell whether the peace will prevail or the situation which is right now continues. Only the time will tell. But thank you so much for joining in on the broadcast, Ambassador. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The NATO summit starting on Wednesday, already grabbing eyeballs amid rising global tensions. Thailand's military closes border crossings into Cambodia.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. The NATO summit kicks off on Wednesday in The Hague amid soaring global tensions, and at the heart of it all, keeping the unpredictable US President Donald Trump firmly committed to the alliance he has repeatedly threatened to dismantle.
For 7 decades, NATO has stood as the bedrock of Western security, but Trump's return to power sent shockwaves through the alliance, threatening to tear apart the transatlantic trust. Now Mark Rutte, the veteran Dutch politician turned NATO chief, finds himself in a diplomatic tightrope walk. His mission? Keep Trump happy, keep the alliance intact, and avoid a historic rupture. The second centerpiece of this summit is a dramatic new defense spending deal. To keep the US engaged, NATO leaders have agreed on a landmark defense spending target: hike the defense budget to a staggering 5% of the GDP, of which 3.5% is earmarked for core military needs, with the remaining 1.5% will be spent on broader security measures like infrastructure and cybersecurity.
The Defense Investment Plan that allies will agree in The Hague introduces a new baseline: 5% of GDP to be invested in defense. This is a quantum leap that is ambitious, historic, and fundamental to securing our future. The new Defense Investment Plan is the key deliverable for this summit and will be decisive when it comes to ensuring effective deterrence in defense.
Deep divisions still persist in NATO. Spain initially balked at the 5% target, sparking fears of a fracture, but Rutte insists no country is exempt.
Of course, they have the sovereign right and also the flexibility to determine their path for delivering on the NATO commitments. That means how much they will spend annually, and this is exactly what we are doing. The big difference from the Welsh pledge in 2014 is this: that there will be annual reports on what nations are spending, there will be regular reviews on what is happening.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and European leaders like France's Emmanuel Macron and Germany's Olaf Scholz have stressed that Europe must rearm to face its security challenges, not just to satisfy US demands.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky finds himself sidelined, downgraded from center stage to mere attendee, reflecting the alliance's delicate balance act. Leaders aim to push for a ceasefire and ramp up pressure on Russia while avoiding direct mention of Ukraine's NATO membership bid, which Trump opposes. The summit also seeks to send a clear message to Moscow that NATO stands united, despite previous US criticism and shifting global priorities. Washington's review of its troop deployments in Europe is looming, with potential troop withdrawals as the US pivots focus to China, but no announcements are expected at this meeting. Japan joined other Indo-Pacific countries, South Korea and Australia and New Zealand, in skipping the summit, though Trump had wanted to hold a summit with the IP4. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on to Russia-Ukraine conflict, a Ukrainian drone struck a multi-story apartment building outside Moscow early on Tuesday, triggering a fire and injuring two people. Moscow's governor confirmed that Russian air defenses had intercepted 2 Ukrainian drones heading for the city overnight. He added that the fire began on the 17th floor of the building in the town of Krasnogorsk, and also said that the injured were taken to hospital for treatment. Waves of Russian drones and missiles in and around Kiev overnight killed 10 people. Residential areas and the entrance to a metro station bomb shelter is said to be damaged less than a kilometer from the US Embassy. Ukraine's Air Force said it had downed 339 of 352 drones and 15 of 16 missiles launched by Russia in the attack on 4 Ukrainian regions. In another strike in northeast Ukraine, 3 people were killed and 3 injured by an overnight Russian strike on a village in Sumy area on Tuesday. The US Supreme Court has cleared the way for President Donald Trump's administration to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their own. Now the migrants would not have to chance to show harms they could face in a country other than their own. The decision has handed Trump administration another victory in aggressive pursuit of mass deportations. The brief order was unsigned and came with no reasoning, as is common when the court decides emergency requests. Thailand's military has closed border crossings into Cambodia to almost all travelers, including tourists and traders, citing security concerns as tensions between the two Southeast Asian neighbors remain escalated over a simmering border dispute. The deterioration in ties was sparked by brief armed clashes in a border area that left one Cambodian soldier dead late last month. Both governments have since announced measures designed to punish the other, including Cambodia's recent suspension of the Thai fuel and gas imports, days after its second largest coalition partner quit over a deepening border dispute with Cambodia. Thailand's Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra on Tuesday said a coalition was strong and that the cabinet reshuffle had been finalized as a government approved $3.5 billion worth of infrastructure projects aimed at boosting growth. It's been 40 years since the deadliest act of terrorism in Canadian history, the bombing of Air India Flight 182. The tragedy claimed 329 lives, most of them Canadian, and left behind a legacy of grief, unanswered questions, and a decades-long pursuit of justice. Memorials were held to honor the victims and stand in solidarity with their families. Reporter Tarun Paul Singh attended the commemorations and brings us this emotional story of remembrance, resilience, and a community that refuses to forget. Take a look.
Time flies, sunrise and shadows fall. Love reign forever over all. These words etched into sundial at Toronto Humber Bay Park East overlook the gentle wave of Lake Ontario as a reminder of a grief that endures. 40 years have passed, yet for the families of Air India Flight 182, love and pain reign forever over all. Under a grey sky, dozens gathered at Air India Flight 182 Memorial in Humber Bay Park East for solemn 40th anniversary service. Many carried flowers, others held small Canadian and Indian flags together in their hands. They placed bouquets of lilies and roses beneath the black granite wall engraved with the names of all who perished. Some gently traced the etched name of their loved ones with trembling fingers. The crowd stood somberly, a mix of aging parents, siblings, children and neighbors, united in remembrance. There were tearful embraces, hushed prayers and candles flickering against the breeze as the mood altered between the quiet sorrow and steadfast resolve. There are also lingering unanswered questions. Families say they are still searching for justice and accountability in a tragedy that should never have occurred. Despite a decade-long investigation and trial, only one person was ever convicted in connection with the bombing. As the ceremony concluded, the mourners at the Humber Bay Park placed final garlands and candles by the memorial sundial. A group of children the same age as some of the young victims stepped forward to sing a soft hymn of peace. Some in the crowd closed their eyes, letting tears fall freely. Others put their arms around one another. Sorrow hung heavily in air, but so did resilience. 40 years later, the families of Flight 182 are still here, still fighting to keep memories alive and lessons learned, and they vow to continue until justice is done and the world never forgets. From Canada, this is Tarun Paul Singh.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval holds a crucial meeting with China's Foreign Minister. We revisit the verdict that shook the government and the silence that followed. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and a quick recap of headlines. Israel says Iran violating ceasefire, orders strikes on Tehran after both countries agree for truce. Iran denies allegations. As part of Operation Sindhu, 594 Indians returned so far from Israel. 268 Indian nationals returned in third flight received by MOS Dr. L. Murugan. Heat waves and wildfires grip multiple regions worldwide. Health warnings issued in U.S. as East Coast grapples with soaring heat. Greece and Russia battle wildfires. Multiple rain alert in different parts of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the centenary celebration of the historic conversation between two of India's greatest spiritual and moral leaders, Sri Narayana Guru and Mahatma Gandhi, on Tuesday in New Delhi. The celebration brings together spiritual leaders and other members to reflect upon and commemorate the visionary dialogue that continues to shape India's social and moral fabric. It stands as a powerful tribute to the shared vision of social justice, unity and spiritual harmony championed by both. Highlighting India's capability, PM Modi said that Operation Sindhu made India's firm policy against terrorism very clear before the world. He added that India has shown that no place is safe for terrorists who spill Indians' blood.
हाल में दुनिया ने ये भी देखा है कि भारत का सामर्थ्य क्या है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर आतंकवाद के खिलाफ भारत की कठोर नीति को दुनिया के सामने एकदम स्पष्ट कर दिया है। हमने दिखा दिया है कि भारतीयों का खून बहाने वाले आतंकियों के लिए कोई भी ठिकाना सुरक्षित नहीं है।
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval held a crucial meeting with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing. During the meeting, both sides reviewed recent developments in India-China bilateral relations and underscored the need to promote the overall development of India-China bilateral relations, including by fostering greater people-to-people ties. India's NSA also emphasized the need to counter terrorism in all its forms and manifestations to maintain overall peace and stability in the region. Views were also exchanged on other bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. On Tuesday, Alexander Venediktov, Deputy Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, called on NSA Ajit Doval on the sidelines of the 20th meeting of the SCO Security Council Secretaries. The two sides discussed issues of bilateral, regional and international significance. The Russian side conveyed that they were looking forward to receiving NSA Doval in Russia for the next round of the strategic dialogue at an early date. The NSA Doval is visiting China to attend the 20th meeting of the SCO Security Council Secretaries. India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Kirti Vardhan Singh, met Maria Manuela dos Santos Lucas, Foreign Minister of the Republic of Mozambique, in Maputo. The two discussed progress of bilateral relations and ways to further strengthen India-Mozambique ties. In recent years, India-Mozambique economic relations have steadily deepened and expanded mainly through greater involvement of Russian companies, of Indian companies, that have invested heavily in the energy resources of Mozambique. Indian Army is strengthening its operational readiness in counter-terrorism, investing worth nearly 2,000 crore of Indian rupees. The Ministry of Defence has concluded 13 contracts under the emergency procurement mechanism. Executed through fast-track procedures under the EP mandate, the procurement aims to enhance situational awareness, lethality, mobility and protection for troops deployed in counter-terrorism environments. Updates on India's weather now. India's Meteorological Department has forecast heavy to very heavy falls over northwest India from 25th June onwards. Rainfall activity is likely to continue over many parts of central, east and northeast India during next 7 days. IMD has issued a red alert for extremely heavy rains in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Met Department said conditions are favorable for further advance of southwest monsoon over remaining parts of North Arabian Sea, some more parts of Rajasthan, Punjab, some parts of Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi, remaining parts of West Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh and remaining parts of Jammu during next 2 days. The West Indian state of Gujarat witnessed a severe monsoon onslaught with various parts of Surat getting flooded after incessant rainfall in the region. Over 100 millimeter of rain has blocked roads and led to waterlogging in several low-lying areas. According to the Indian Meteorological Department, the rainfall is likely to continue, issuing yellow alert for June 24, prompting the closure of schools in several districts, including Surat. From June 26 to 28, widespread rain with thunderstorms and lightning is expected to continue across the state. Meanwhile, Jaipur has been issued an orange alert on June 23 for heavy rainfall in several districts of eastern Rajasthan. Residents have been warned to prepare for intense weather over the next 24 hours. Baran district of Rajasthan experienced a flood-like situation after heavy rainfall. Authorities have launched a rescue operation under any preparedness for any damages caused. All right, and DD India's Meghna Dev joins us from Ahmedabad. Hi, Meghna. Can you just first of all update us about the situation there in Gujarat? How is the situation like? And what is the present condition of rains? And has there been any advisory issued by the government?
Siddharth, to tell you about different parts of Gujarat, specifically South Gujarat is the most affected area in terms of current intensity of rainfall. We saw in Surat that the number of areas, specifically the low-lying areas, were submerged in rainwaters, and there was a rescue operation that was carried out by the authorities, the municipal corporation and the NDRF teams, wherein more than 100 people were brought out of low-lying areas. Also, the schools declared a holiday in terms of their morning as well as afternoon sessions. Many students were also evacuated from, rescued from their schools for that matter yesterday, and from hospitals and banks also many people were rescued. So, then the Surat Municipal Corporation also did a depumping exercise to depump the water so that the water level subsides, and then the traffic can resume to normal and life can resume to normalcy. But definitely, and when we look at the other areas like Valsad and other areas, most of these areas in South Gujarat are very heavily affected. Now we also do see that the 15 dams in the state are on high alert at the moment, and about 60 roads have been closed due to for traffic due to the rainfall, and obviously number of highways submerged in rainwaters. And because of this, also the meteorological department has issued an alert, especially also for fishermen to not venture into the sea till 27th of June. Besides that, also alert has been issued for North Gujarat. So the upcoming 7 days, specifically 7 to 10 days, there is light to moderate rainfall expected in the central Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, where I am currently at, Ahmedabad the neighborhood. Yellow alert has been issued. Red alert has been issued for specifically in areas of North Gujarat as well. Orange alert has also been issued for a number of areas. Now, when we actually see that monsoon activity is quite vigorous, across Gujarat, extremely heavy rain has been reported in Banaskantha, Sabarkantha. Now, these are areas of North Gujarat. Other districts like Arvalli and, as I told you, the South Gujarat areas of Surat and Valsad have also witnessed heavy rainfall. Now, we also see that orange alert has been issued for Gandhinagar, Kheda, Anand, Panchmahal, and obviously red alert specifically for the regions of North Gujarat and Saurashtra has been issued by the meteorological department as of now. And currently, the situation that we see, the NDRF already has, given the number of teams of NDRF have already been deployed in different areas of Gujarat to assist in any kind of untoward incident that occurs specifically in the low-lying areas and the coastal areas and the districts of like Gir Somnath, Dwarka, and these areas which have a large coastline, and most of the times when such a situation happens, there is a rise in water level, so the people are evacuated from one place and are relocated to the other place. So all arrangements have been made by the state administration, continuously monitoring and also deploying of the teams so that during such incidents and rise of water level, relocation and other situations can be managed.
Now we'll keep taking updates from you on this, but as of now, we leave it there. Thank you. Heavy rain lashed parts of India's financial capital Mumbai last night. The heavy rain comes as Mumbai continues to experience a variable monsoon season, with meteorologists forecasting more scattered showers over the coming days. Meanwhile, the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh is on red alert with a possibility of very heavy rainfall in 24 districts. To the eastern state of Jharkhand, IMD has issued a detailed alert for Ranchi with series of thunderstorms, lightning strikes and heavy rainfall likely to impact various parts of the state, prompting officials to advise residents to remain alert and take appropriate precautions. Besides this, IMD has issued yellow alert for all northeastern states including Assam and Meghalaya. Orange alert has been declared for Arunachal Pradesh and is likely to receive heavy to very heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall is expected in Assam and Meghalaya. Global weather news now. Tens of millions of people sweltered across the U.S. Northeast and Midwest on Monday as record high heat disrupted electricity supplies and train travel. Some East Coast trains were halted on en route for safety precautions on Monday. Heat warnings, which began over the weekend and are set to continue through the week, were in effect across much of the United States. Greece declared a state of emergency on Chios Island, where hundreds of firefighters have been battling wildfires for a second day as winds further whipped up the place, causing power cuts and the evacuation of residents. Over 190 firefighters, 38 vehicles, 12 helicopters and 4 water bombers have been deployed to douse the blaze. Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla's AXIM-4 mission to the International Space Station is now eyeing a launch on June 25. The AXIM-4 mission, which marks the return to space for India, Hungary and Poland, was earlier scheduled for liftoff from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida on June 25 on board SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. The mission was originally scheduled for liftoff on May 29 but was then put off to June 8, then June 10 and then later. Earlier, when engineers detected a liquid oxygen leak in the boosters of the Falcon 9 rocket, and NASA also detected leaks in the aging Russian module of International Space Station. The launch was then planned for June 19 and then on June 22nd, which was put off to allow NASA evaluate operations of the ISS after repairs in the Russian module. June 1975. A radio crackled. A nation held its breath. With one announcement, democracy dimmed and dictatorship took root. The emergency wasn't just a political storm. It was a direct assault on the Indian Constitution, the courts and the citizen. In our next report, we revisit the verdict that shook the government and the silence that followed.
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है।
This announcement marked the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in India's democratic history, a time of unprecedented repression. But what triggered it was a judicial verdict from the Allahabad High Court and the Supreme Court's refusal to fully stay that order. On June 12, 1975, Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha of the Allahabad High Court delivered a landmark judgment declaring then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's 1971 election from the Rai Bareli constituency null and void due to electoral malpractices. Indira Gandhi appealed to the Supreme Court, where Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer refused to grant a full stay on the High Court's ruling on June 24, 1975. The very next day, the emergency was imposed. What followed was an era of authoritarianism, and democracy in India was pushed to the brink. Fundamental rights guaranteed, equality before law, right to life and personal liberty were suspended immediately after the declaration. By January 1976, Article 19 was also suspended, effectively snatching away the rights of free speech, press, association, and peaceful assembly. As the machinery of state suppression kicked in, the judiciary wasn't spared either. Lawyers who dared to speak out in defense of civil liberties were arrested. In March 1976, without any prior notice, 200 chambers of practicing lawyers at Delhi's Tisazari court were demolished, and 43 lawyers were sent to jail. Soon, attention turned to High Court judges who had passed verdicts against the government's excesses. Many were transferred or faced punitive action for their rulings. But the most prominent casualty of judicial independence during the emergency was Justice H.R. Khanna. He was the senior-most judge in the Supreme Court and the natural successor to become the Chief Justice of India. But in the ADM Jabalpur case, where the core issue was the suspension of fundamental rights during emergency, Justice Khanna stood alone in dissent.
जो आतंक का माहौल था उसमें जजों को इतना ज़बरदस्त डराया गया। एन रे का केस पहले से ही चल रहा था, यानी 7-8 जजों को सुपरसीड करके जो एन रे को चीफ जस्टिस बनाया था, तो ऐसे भी जुडिशरी डरी हुई थी। तो जबलपुर का एक केस है जिसमें जीने का अधिकार भी जुडिशरी के माध्यम से इंदिरा गांधी सरकार ने नागरिकों से छीन लिया था।
His principled stand cost him dearly. The Indira Gandhi government superseded him and appointed a junior judge, Justice Mirza Hamidullah Beg, as the Chief Justice instead. In protest, Justice Khanna resigned the very same day.
Justice Khanna यह स्वीकार करने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे कि किसी भी हालत में सरकार द्वारा किसी नागरिक से उसके जीने का हक और अदालत में न्याय मांगने का अधिकार यह छीन लिया गया। अपने डिसेंटिंग जजमेंट के लिए जस्टिस खन्ना को क्या कीमत चुकानी पड़ी है, यह बात भारतीय लोकतंत्र के सबसे काले अध्याय के पन्नों में अंकित है।
Indira Gandhi's authoritarian grip extended to the constitution itself, which she amended multiple times during the emergency to consolidate her power. The 38th Amendment took away the judiciary's power to review the emergency. The 39th Amendment barred courts from questioning the election of the Prime Minister altogether. But the most alarming was the 42nd Amendment, often called the mini-constitution, which altered 40 different provisions of the constitution under Article 368. In independent India's 75-year constitutional history, this remains the only amendment that even changed the preamble of the Constitution. The very soul of the Constitution was suffocated during the emergency. Bureau Report, DD India.
Oil prices have trimmed some of the losses at ceasefire remains fragile. WTI crude futures pared some of their earlier losses but were still down about 3% to $66 per barrel. In earlier session, oil plunged as much as 6%. Oil prices are now lower than 12 June when Israel first launched an attack on Iran. International Monetary Funds has approved US $1.3 billion disbursement of the third and fourth tranches of $4.7 billion loan program for Bangladesh. The amount covering both the third and fourth tranches is expected to be deposited into Bangladesh's account on June 26. Bangladesh's macroeconomic challenges have increased since popular uprising in the summer of 2024, which led to the ouster of previous government. The IMF stated that the loan program aimed to help Bangladesh maintain macroeconomic stability, protect vulnerable and marginalized populations, and foster inclusive and environmentally sustainable growth. Germany's new government is set to approve its budget with plans to invest record sums in defense and infrastructure, according to media reports. that marks a shift in German fiscal policy. DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu joins us from Berlin. Hi Chiponda, what can you tell us about the plans?
Thanks for having me. Well, the government's budget is set to be passed by the cabinet today, and that is according to German news agency DPA. Spending is supposed to be increased by around 6% of GDP to 503 billion euros this year. Now, after the 2025 budget is approved by the cabinet, it will be introduced to the Bundestag, which is Germany's lower house of parliament, in mid-July before the summer break. And the final approval is expected to come in September. Now, the increase in spending could help boost Germany's economy, which, of course, has been struggling after consecutive years of recession. And, of course, we also do know that the outlook for this year has been negative so far, partly due to some of the uncertainty around global trade amid the trade dispute between the United States and the European Union.
Indeed. So, Chiponda, what exactly is the government planning to spend on?
Well, a big part of the spending is for infrastructure and defense. Germany has 500 billion euros to invest on infrastructure over the coming years, and it will invest around 400 billion euros on defense. Now, military spending is supposed to be raised to 3.5% of GDP by 2029. And all of this spending is, of course, made possible by a reform that was passed in the German Bundestag in March. And that helped loosen Germany's strict borrowing rules to allow the government to spend more on defense and infrastructure. Now, for over a decade, the country's spending on infrastructure lagged behind many of its European peers due to its conservative stance on borrowing, which was, of course, limited to 0.35% of GDP a year following the financial crisis in 2008. And while that may have, of course, helped Germany have a very healthy debt to GDP ratio, its infrastructure has been crumbling in some areas and is, of course, in desperate need of investment.
All right, thank you so much. Our correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu was joining us from Berlin. And now in sports news, the Leeds Test between India and England is set for a dramatic finish heading into day 5. On day 4, India finished their second innings at 364, setting the hosts a challenging 371-run target to win. At stumps, England had moved cautiously to 21 for no loss, with Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett negotiating the final overs of the day unscathed. They now require another 350 runs on the final day. Earlier in the day, KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant stitched together a 195-run stand for the 4th wicket after the early dismissal of Shubman Gill. Rahul hit his 8th ton, while Pant dazzled with flair and aggression, scoring 118 off 140 deliveries. Despite losing quick wickets at the end, India managed to build a commanding lead. The target of 371 is a record chase in England and sets up the intriguing day 5, with India eyeing early wickets and England hoping to defy history. Rain, however, could yet have a say in the outcome. Former Indian left-arm spinner Dilip Doshi passed away due to cardiac arrest on Monday, aged 77. Doshi, who bowled with a classical left-armer's action, played for India between 1979 to 83, making debut at the age of 32. He took 114 test wickets in 33 appearances, including 6 5-wicket hauls in the longest format. In 15 ODIs, he took 22 wickets. Doshi also played first-class cricket for Saurashtra, Bengal, Warwickshire and Nottinghamshire. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.